don't get it. Like trees and plants, a lot of people think they grow from soil. The plant is just solid carbon dioxide, right? Trees are solidified air. They take almost nothing from the ground. All the carbon is carbon dioxide.
Ladies and gentlemen, people of the internet, welcome to Mind Gap. You're live here with Simo and Roy. He's the smart one. I press the buttons. We have a distinguished guest with us in the studio. We had the pleasure of meeting him at the Singularity Summit earlier this year. A man with many fingers in many pies. Meow Meow, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Pleasure.
So,
I don't know where to start.
where do we go from here?
Oh, we totally didn't do this completely backwards.
Which pie are we going to start with?
Yes, well, you are a molecular biologist
By trade, yeah.
by trade, and you've founded Moth Diagnostics.
That's my latest company, yeah.
How about you tell us a little bit about that and some of your aspirations?
So basically, I'm I'd say I'm probably I studied genetics at uni, but I'd say right now I'm more a biotechnologist, and I like that concept of technologist because I think that one thing that a lot of people kind of confuse or don't separate enough is the difference between science and technology. We can kind of lump them, STEM, the S and the T, we just kind of lump them all in together, but they are very different fields. Like I am not a scientist. I do science, I use science as a tool, but I am not a scientist. I'm a technologist. My job is to translate research into products.
Right.
So that's what I do on a daily basis. And I can do science, just like some scientists can do technology. Like they might build a new piece of equipment to learn about something, but that's not their job. Their job is to answer questions. My job is to take all those cool ideas or understandings and then put it into something which can go in someone's hand.
Yes.
And with biology, there's not a lot of that. So a baker is a biotechnologist, right? They take our understandings of biology and they use microbes. They use microbes
Yeast.
to do work. Yes.
Right.
So when a microbe does work, that's biotechnology, right? Okay. When any living thing does work, it's biotechnology. Learning about it, though, is not. That's a molecular biologist. And that's what I studied to be, a geneticist, right? Yeah. But a biotechnologist is someone who takes that and does it. So brewing alcohol is biotechnology, making yogurt is biotechnology, making kombucha is biotechnology, but at the same time, making, COVID tests or making vaccines or making cancer treatments is all biotechnology as well.
Wow.
And the way that we use those microbes, though, essentially is the same. There's different levels of difficulty and some are very expensive. The regulations, which is the main thing around it, are different, but at its core, it's getting microbes to do work for us. You can get an animal to do work, but it's not really a biotechnology. It is broadly, you could say, well, yeah, it kind of is, but it's not really. Biotechnology is specifically about microbes or things at a cellular level.
Okay. You can't coerce with your hands or your mind like a horse.
That's right.
Yeah.
So and generally we think about it as like for example, if we had some yeast and they formed a network of filaments, but we were feeding them sugar and getting alcohol out, we'd say that's a biotechnical application.
Gotcha.
Because we're using cellular processes to cycle nutrients.
Yes.
Right. That's all the Earth does anyway, right?
Nitrogen cycle,
sulfur cycle, carbon cycle, all these things. Incredibly useful, and microbes regularly change, the environment in huge ways. The atmosphere was not always like this, there was a time before photosynthesis. So microbes are very good at doing jobs, and the small amounts of work done by a very large amount of organisms catalyzes the hugest change and has shaped the planet as it is now. My job is to understand some of those processes and help steer them in directions that are good for the planet, but primarily profitable for me.
Okay. Is there any crossover? Let's first clarify STEM. So STEM stands for science, technology, electronics, and mathematics.
Engineering.
Engineering and
Which
mathematics.
Is a subpart.
Sorry, yes.
So,
okay. So that's STEM. And would there be, so there's science and there's technology. So is there any crossover with, say, nanotech? Even in the future, potentially?
So generally we think of STEM as kind of encompassing
everything,
the sciences, right?
Yeah.
So we think, so nanotech is effectively the technology of inorganic chemistry.
Oh, right, yes.
Does that make
At
sense?
that scale.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when we have chemistry, we're generally skipping microbes. So chemistry, you have inputs. Well, any industry, you have inputs and outputs.
Yeah.
A chicken, you input grain, it outputs eggs or meat.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Chemistry, I input chemicals, and then something happens, and then I output other chemicals.
Right, gotcha.
Now, biotechnology, I input chemicals and I output chemicals. Why wouldn't I just do bio stuff using chemistry? Because we don't generally get the yields or the ease of reactions that we get. So chemistry generally has quite low yields. Biology has yields of 100%.
Right.
Oh.
Evolution is very good at making things efficient. So it's very efficient, but it also might create a range of products. Sometimes that's desirable, sometimes it's not. We can also do very, very, very complicated chemical reactions very simply by using organisms that have spent millions of years learning how to do these
Gotcha.
in ways that we can't do in chemistry yet.
Is it
Yeah.
like, for example, photosynthesis?
Yeah. So we're trying to do.
You're trying to do
We're
it.
trying to copy it, but
Yep.
we can't do it in any way that makes any sense at the moment. And we use the same things, porphyrins, which make chlorophyll, which are also heme in our blood. It's made from a porphyrin. We try and use that to do other things, like use sunlight to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And we can do it using chemistry and what we call nanotech, which is an inorganic chemistry, to do this, but it only happens at a very, very inefficient rate.
Yeah.
Plants can do it very efficiently, but we can't harness it to turn it into products that are useful in the way we want.
Gotcha.
Plants are really good at turning carbon dioxide into oxygen. We don't use them like that for some reason. Who knows what? Elon Musk's like, oh, I'll give $100 million to anyone that can work out a way to, effectively find chemistry that harvests carbon. And I'm like,
Plant trees.
it's a no-brainer.
That's a tough one.
You know where that carbon's coming from? There's this thing called fossils that once upon a time were trees that got put in the ground and turned into coal. That's why it's called fossil fuel.
Yeah.
And then we burn that and we're like, how can we undo what just happened? And I'm like, by following the same thing, taking the carbon dioxide and light and putting it back into plant and then put that back in the ground. It's like, it's a real simple process. There isn't a more efficient way of doing it, right?
That's very simple. That really makes it simple to understand.
It does. And the thing is, it's solar power by a degree of separation at that point, right?
Well,
So all we're
everything is
doing-
solar power by how many degrees of separation?
Exactly.
Yes.
So we're
Yeah.
using plants as a store of carbon. If we've
Yes.
got too much carbon in the atmosphere, we just need to put it back into that store.
Yeah.
Right? How do we do it? Dude, we have to have political will. Climate change is a solved problem, right? The problem is how to convince countries and companies
Yeah.
to do it. That's the only problem, right? And the thing is, we don't want to pay for it. Oh, it's expensive. Okay, how do we find products that are plant-based that end up paying themselves off? And I was thinking about this the other day. What about rope, right? You can just plant hemp.
Oh yeah, hemp's very good at
And then-
sequestering carbon. Yeah.
And then, it grows fast, right? And the thing is, like, this was one of those things,
Build
right?
build structures out of it and everything. Yeah.
And but the thing is, it's water intensive, but that's not the problem, right?
Oh,
The
okay.
problem is that no one wants to pay to sequester carbon. So you have to think about ways to take that carbon, lock it up, and make profit from it.
You have to build a economic case for it.
So the problem is we have, in economics, we have this problem called a negative externality. The cost of our goods is not captured in the problems they create.
So we need a carbon tax.
We need a carbon tax. You need to put a price on it, right? Or make it profitable to do the right thing. And we already do this with a whole bunch of things, right? Now, the thing is, until you put a price on it and encapsulate that in the costs of the things we use, there's no... Companies shouldn't do it because if they do it the right way, they get outcompeted.
What are your thoughts on a green dollar?
How does a green dollar work?
So a green dollar runs next to the normal dollar, and the exchange rate is based on how much economic activity the government wants in the green area. So with a green dollar, you might be able to plant trees or buy certain vehicles or whatever that are cheaper. It's cheaper to buy it with green dollars than normal dollars. So in order to get green dollars, you have to do things like plant trees and all that. Then you get your green dollars or tax credits or whatever you want to call it. And then you can buy those things easier, and the government can turn up or down the exchange rate. Oh, we need more green activity. Let's make the exchange rate more favorable. So either a company just goes, no, we don't care about green dollars, and does everything through normal dollars, which they can do. But depending on the exchange rate, they might go, oh, it's cheaper for us to plant some trees, get some green dollars, and then use the green dollars to buy this machinery which we need.
It makes sense. Like the thing is, any form of action makes sense. That's the hilarious thing. Like I'm a bleeding heart lefty, right? Like I am a greenie. But also at the same time, I'm like against some of the things. So I actually think that the carbon offset project that the government is trying to do,
the carbon credit thing,
it's fine, but it has to be administered properly. So I started a business in 2019 before COVID, BC, we'll call it now, which was, I found this plant, and this will blow your mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
You found a plant.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, why is this plant important? I found the only scientifically proven way to fix climate change, as in, it has happened before. So right now, there's how much parts per million CO2 in the atmosphere?
400.
Yep.
400 something.
Okay, back at the end of the Eocene, 3,200 parts per
Are you
million.
talking about cyanobacteria?
Better.
Oh, what?
Better. It forms a there was a plant, forms a symbiotic relationship with cyanobacteria. Now cyanobacteria fixes the nitrogen. Now it grew, it's called a zola. You can check this out, the Azola event. Over 800,000 years, which geologically is tiny, right?
Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah.
Mother Nature fixed climate change. How? This is why Elon Musk's like, I want $100 million. I'm like, bro, we got the answers. We have the answers, right? What it did was...
Why are we doing...
Okay, 3,200 parts per million, right?
Yeah.
Think
That's
about
huge.
how hot it was, right?
Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah.
And very leafy around then too. Went down to, I think it was 80 parts per million.
It would have been
sent
freezing.
Earth into an ice age by accident. And I'm like...
Wait, so that was what the global the glacial maximum was?
Yeah.
It coincides
Right.
with...
Mother Nature
Azola.
solved the problem. And what happened? So what happened? How did this happen? Okay, where the Arctic is now, there was a giant freshwater lake.
Right.
And there's a duckweed. There's a duckweed, a freshwater fern called Azola. And you will, if I show it to you,
freshwater, right.
if you see it, you'll know what it is, right? You'll know. So basically, I'll just describe it quickly. It's kind of, what does it look like? Kind of an unusually shaped plant. It's got multiple leaves that are arranged in a kind of random fashion. And it grows in Australia. At one point, it grew
right.
fucking everywhere, right? Now, this thing can double every 2 to 8 days.
Yeah.
And what happened was, as it doubled, it pushed out into the salt water ocean. And when it hits the halocline, it dies. It sinks to the bottom of the ocean.
It sequesters the carbon.
And guess what happens when it falls to the bottom of the ocean? It becomes oil. And guess what we're mining right now and putting back in the atmosphere?
Azolas. Fossilized
Where the
azola.
f*** does all this oil come from? It comes from all the carbon we
I
sequestered.
thought it was
right?
dead forests.
Well, it is.
Oh, in Saudi Arabia.
Except-
Yeah.
I think about it, like there's a forest and then there's like swamps, right? And we're talking like the types of these things. Wood doesn't make really good carbon, right? You want a combination of things.
Leaves.
And this is just basically algae, right? And algae after a few days already looks like oil, right? Like
Yeah.
it has to go to the bottom of the ocean to get compressed. Now this is there. So I'm like, why don't we just reverse it? Except it did it by accident in 800,000 years. Okay, what about if we tried to do it? Dude, we could solve this problem in our lifetimes easily. I calculated, back of the envelope,
Yeah.
how much would we have to grow? How big would the lake have to be to offset Australia's emissions every year?
I don't know.
Quite big.
Yeah. I'm assuming.
Not
might
as big
be.
as you think. 2 times the size of Tasmania.
What about Lake Eyre?
Okay, Lake Eyre is not quite big enough. But that's if it's
You
just a
can
fucking
genetically
lake.
engineer it to be more
It's
efficient.
almost perfect.
Okay.
We'll talk about genetic engineering in one moment. But we don't have to grow just one lake. Right? That's if we were lazy, we could do that. And that means we would just be carbon neutral tomorrow.
Oh, you want to be
Right,
carbon negative or whatever.
You can, but also at the same time, okay, well, that's if it was a lake. It's about 2/3 the size of Victoria. That's big. We could do it in Western Australia, but f- that. What about if we just make it 2 levels and then we just get rid of Tasmania? No one cares about it anyway, right?
Fair call.
And then, or we make it 5 stories and then it's 1/5 the size of Tasmania, and like so on, right? So we can grow this wherever we want. It only needs 8 centimeters of water to bro, this is crazy, right? We've solved this problem. Dude, I couldn't make any money with that company. Why?
Because you solved it? Or
Because
partly?
the problem's already been solved. I'm not the first to think of this.
Yeah.
The problem is no one wants to solve the problem, right? No one actually wants to solve it. I'm going to Elon Musk, oh, hey, bro, we already solved it. He's like, no, I want a better solution, right? No one wants to pay for it because it's too easy a solution. And the people who want to burn coal, I called up Liberal government, right? I called up a politician and I said, listen, I didn't speak to the MP, I spoke to his receptionist.
Yeah.
I worked out a way, guys, that you can continue to burn all the coal you want and no one's going to care.
Yeah.
You know what he said to me?
What?
Bro, I can already burn all the coal I want.
That's the reality check.
And you know what? That's what I knew
time
my
we're
company
living.
was doomed. Because guess what? Australia voted for them. Why am I trying to solve this problem when no one wants to solve? Dude, it was depressing. And the thing with the carbon credits, you know who's got all the carbon credits? The coal people.
Yeah, they
Because
buy it off everyone
Yeah, because
else.
they're trying to offset. We're causing damage, but if we
Yeah, they
pay
buy it off
money,
other
we
companies.
have this non-existent credit that
Yeah.
doesn't really do anything.
If I'm a company and I don't use my carbon credits, I can sell it to them.
But then if I come in and say I just took a ton of coal out of the atmosphere, a ton of carbon, or same thing, I'm like, oh, I need money. They're like, oh yeah, carbon credits are only $2. I'm like, well, I can't make a business pulling it out of the atmosphere for $2 when I'm competing against some old that just gets carbon credits for doing nothing. I can't compete against that.
Yeah.
All it is a way, as you said, for the companies who are doing the wrong thing to extend them doing the wrong thing for longer. Because the second that the cost actually costs what it takes to pull it out, they'll just drop the whole carbon credit system, right?
Yeah.
So at that point,
Because they were pushing the carbon credits, and you heard about it on the news all the time.
Yeah, but they do that.
Apart from us just talking about it now, I haven't heard anything on the radio or companies talking about it. I'm not in big business, but it's still a thing, right?
They do that for everything.
And the problem is there was a lot of problems with auditing, right? Like say for example, I have
How do you know?
rainforest that gets burned down. Do I then lose my carbon credits? And what about if and there's all these problems with it. How much is a wetland sequestering? Oh, well, some new research says the wetland is sequestering less. So did they then lose money? But I'm like, okay, what about if it's I was growing a very discrete technology where I'm literally pulling carbon out and I'm like, here's the carbon. There's no questions about it. There's no incentives for that technology. Now, what's interesting is during this, I was like, okay, I've spoken to a lot of people. A lot of people don't get it. Like trees and plants, a lot of people think they grow from soil, like they're growing out of the ground. But the plant, it's just solid carbon dioxide, right? It was like a penny drop moment for me when I thought about this. Trees are solidified air. They're not. They take almost nothing from the ground. All the carbon is carbon dioxide. The entire plant is just air that has been condensed. And I had this revelation. And I'm like, this is crazy. Plants are the battery. They are the store. They're the carbon. Not a single bit of carbon comes out of the ground. They take out some trace elements and stuff. Nitrogen, definitely.
Water.
And water. But all that carbon is carbon dioxide.
Wow.
They are the atmosphere solidified. And if you want to try and come up with a better technology than that, 4 billion years of evolution says there is no better solution.
Here.
There is no better solution, right? Yeah. And it's simple. The problem isn't the technology, it's the political will. And if Elon Musk was clever, he would put it towards solving that problem, right?
So what you're saying is there is a solution that's been proven, tested, but it won't make anyone any money. Therefore,
it can
find something else.
Wait, what about this? You can use the carbon with a resin to create building materials.
So this is another thing.
This is the hemp thing, is it?
Lab-grown wood was one of the things. That's the lab-grown meat. We do lab-grown wood. You can make building materials. Building materials is a good way. One of the biggest problems is you have to make sure the carbon doesn't enter the carbon cycle again. So it needs to be locked up. So technologies that cause trees to grow quicker. But we already have wood, which is a fucking fantastic carbon sink, which is like a building material.
Yeah, but can you make it out of like even baser versions of carbon, because it's non-flammable?
The thing is, we have to think about how much energy goes in.
Oh yes, of course.
So you can. Well, the thing is, what Elon Musk wants is something where we can stick a bit of energy in and pull out later. Yeah, right. Put a bit of energy in and sink more carbon than we emit to create that. right? Because they want a scalable solution. The problem is they're limited by their imagination. They can't see how biology can be a scalable solution. And that's not my fault. That's their fault for having small imaginations, which is really what it is, right?
That's fair.
If anything, biology can be a runaway. It can run away, and it can just cause another glacial maximum.
I know people who are genetically engineering the azolla not to be more efficient, but to be more salt tolerant.
Oh Jesus, that's gonna ruin. That could ruin the world. That could be the next biological weapon.
It could. Wow. Can you imagine that?
It's azolla everywhere.
Exactly right. That stuff is impossible to kill unless you're me trying to grow it. In which case, you kill it. Right? But that's the thing. Imagine if we created an ice age instead of a.
So it's either biological weapon ice age or nuclear fallout nuclear winter.
Yeah.
They're both pretty cold.
Both lose.
That's it. Yeah.
Jesus.
So we have two ways to solve global warming:
Yeah.
nuclear winter or biological winter.
And I think plants are safe. You know, you can squirt Roundup on the ocean, and then we can be okay. But like, honestly, it's like biology is good at correcting itself.
The thing is, if you have this plant and it mutates into a salt tolerant plant, that could be dangerous.
The thing is, though, it's had so much opportunity to do
And it hasn't done it.
It hasn't done it, right? It's had 49 million years. With 800,000 years, it was getting selected for salt tolerant.
And it didn't do it.
It didn't do it. It's not that it's impossible.
It's highly unlikely.
It's unlikely, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is as well, like, you know, biological stuff we can control. Like, you know, cane toads didn't do good for Queensland, but they also didn't wipe out the whole country either, right?
Yeah.
Like you know, they're limited, as you said, finding limits. You know, they're limited by their environment. And things like AI and nanotechnologies and stuff, we can actually imagine stuff that is not limited. Right? It's limited by thermodynamic laws and stuff, which are way scarier. With biology,
They have limits within their framework.
that's it. Most we're ever going to kill is 99.99%, right?
Yeah.
And you know, we killed that many rabbits in Australia. There are still rabbits in Australia.
Yes.
So no matter how you can do a good job of controlling it, but you'll never completely wipe it out unless it's really.
Didn't we wipe out the Tasmanian the thylacine?
That's right. Yeah, island's too small.
We've managed to do it. We put a bounty out. That's why.
Yeah.
We put anyone who kills a thylacine gets whatever.
And we killed rhinos as well. We've extincted them, right?
Oh, we've done a few, eh?
The thing is, what's interesting is with elephants, we didn't finish them off. And what we're starting to see now is there are elephants being born without tusks.
Jesus, they selected for it.
Oh.
Yeah,
Because the ones without tusks were the ones that survived.
that's it.
So now we've got elephants with no tusks.
So, yeah, nature's good at doing it. And I think the thing is, don't fight nature. You've got to work with nature.
Yeah.
And chemistry isn't always working with nature. Chemistry is a lot of the time looking for cheat codes, but I'm like, the cheat codes are already there. It's about using them cleverly. My job as a biotechnologist is how do we look at biology as a technology and wield it in the way that it wants to be wielded.